the one key, strong, outstanding strategy, the strategic concern, which everybody has been identifying consistently, is the need for more and greater social housing. I know that that's not what you're dealing with here, but I'd like if you would address perhaps how you see this fitting in to a commitment to building more social housing. While absolutely we have been supporting that the Minister would move forward in these planning areas, that the Minister would add a robust, strong message to the construction industry that all those who seek to avail of this new planning structure, be it fast track, if that is the label attached to it, that they should not be allowed to do that while still sitting on planning permissions for potentially up to 28,000 units, as we've heard in Dublin alone, but rather that any construction company, any developer who wishes to develop and who wishes to avail of this should have to show good faith and show that they recognise how hard it was to achieve planning, that they will act on that planning permission. And the proposal here is very simple. It is that a commencement notice must be submitted to the relevant planning authority for any outstanding planning permission for 100 units or more before an application under this particular section in this proposal might be made. I mean, I actually think it's almost unarguable that that would be the case. If there is seriousness from all in society, including the construction industry and the developers, in terms of stepping up to the collective challenge we face now, let them show good faith by filing commencement orders in relation to outstanding large-scale, this is not every house in Ireland, but at large-scale planning permissions. Let them file those commencement orders, show good faith, and begin building right away. If we are serious, and I believe the Minister is, about housing, we need to be absolutely clear that, unfortunately, profit alone cannot be the main driver and the main consideration and the gift that must be offered up in order to have reasonable housing and accommodation. We cannot guarantee. You spoke to the reason why houses had not been built and that they are being built now, the profit incentive. There may be well reasons in the future when we have situations in which the public, in which we do not have secure public finances. We live in an unstable world. We cannot build our plans simply on a limitless degree of profit in terms of that construction companies setting their own agenda completely in terms of what they regard as sufficient motivation to build. Nobody is saying that somebody has to build if they're going to make a loss, but let them weigh up the advantages which you've rightly said are given to them and afforded to them in this legislation. The opportunities to build and to fast-track planning proposals and to invest and to seize this moment where they can build and they can sell. There is a reason why our housing industry failed, and a lot of that sits with speculation. We talk about the reason why we are in the situation we are now. Much of it sits with an absolutely untrammeled, speculative approach to housing, with the idea that the market will provide. Oh, solely. We are looking to a balance, I hope, here, Minister, in your measures, whereby, yes, you are working with those who are the providers, but you are also going to be clear that your responsibility fundamentally is not simply to their financial returns. Your core responsibility is to ensure that we have the supply of housing we need. This is an opportunity to leverage our power as legislators in order to ensure that we do see movement, because there is a fact that speculators have been drip-feeding development in parts of the country, and they are waiting and waiting and waiting, and they are waiting on the backs of hardship of individuals and of citizens in order to decide when they feel motivated to build.
But on the wider question, the reality many people see, and we all have heard the cases, and there's letters that come into us all the time, and we see the papers of families becoming homeless, of families suffering eviction, of the increased levels. I won't go through all of the statistics because I'm sure we're going to hear them in the debate again and again today, of the increased level of family homelessness. What we want to ensure is that there is some break put, and that those who are acting as receivers are not exempted from the responsibilities that should be afforded to landlords, because they may be receivers in relation to property, but where those properties are tenants, those tenants are tenanted, those tenants are entitled to protections, and they're entitled to the same rights as any other tenant. So I think it's really in terms of if we're serious about protecting tenants and protecting those who are very vulnerable in residential property, we need to make sure that regardless of whether the building they live in is owned by a landlord or whether it has been managed by a receiver, that they are afforded the same protections. This is literally to address what I believe is an anomaly in the law, and I think it's a recognised anomaly. Rent at the moment is running away. The figures we have here, I'm looking at the figures for this year, we're looking in some parts of the country at 19% increase in a year. We're looking at, across the country, an average of almost 12% increase in 1 year. This is in 1 year, and this is, you know, incomes aren't going up by 12% per year, I'll assure you, and that's why people don't have another year to wait for legislation on this. People need to be able to plan next year. People are, at the moment, we have people enrolling their children in schools, and they don't know if they're going to be able to live in the neighbourhood and if those children will be able to continue going to those schools. People cannot plan their lives. And the cost isn't being felt by individuals. And we look, for example, the rents are higher than they were now during the boom. The rents have absolutely skewed relationships where they are not in any ways bound to any other indicator across the economy. The only indicator they might be tied to are our ludicrous GDP figures of 26%, because there's nowhere else that we're seeing these kinds of crazy scale-ups in rent. It is an emergency and crisis situation when that is happening. And the cost is being felt not just by these families, but by the state. It's being felt in the industrial unrest that we're seeing. It's being felt in the protests. Because when you dig down to so many of the other issues that come up in this House, it comes down to rent. It comes down to people not feeling that they can afford rent, and that has been a key issue, and you know it has been a key issue, Minister, in many of the industrial relations disputes that we've seen. We need to be tackling it, and we have again tried to be accommodating here. We have set out 2 different amendments, and I'm asking you, Minister, to indicate if you will accept at least one of them. If we are putting in emergency measures on planning now, but the conversation in planning is ongoing, then we can put in emergency measures in relation to rent certainty and then still have an ongoing conversation around our rental and tenancy strategy.